Good afternoon. My name is Chris Hopkins. I am the CFO of the CFITS Association. I am sitting in today for Kim McCleary, who is in Washington, D.C. on business. So I am sitting in today as the admin and the host. We are very glad that you all are here with us today for our fourth in our webinar series, spring series. It's a series of 6 webinars held through the middle of May. We have the pleasure of talking with or hearing today Dr. Suzanne Vernon and Mark Stone. He is our Director of Development. And let me see if I can get the Sorry, my PowerPoint isn't working. All of our webinars are recorded and will be available on the Solve CFS YouTube channel. And the email that we will send to everybody as follow-up will contain the link. So if you've missed any of the other 3 webinars, and for this one as well, they will be available on the YouTube channel. The first webinar that we had was the overview of drug development landscape with Christine Schneeman from Faster Cures. We had the second one, it was Finding Your Strongest Voice for Public Testimony with Lee Reynolds, who is our new Engagement and Communications Manager, and Kim McCleary. And then Suzanne and Kim gave the most recent webinar on what does the phrase safe and effective really mean. We are holding these webinars to catalyze the community so they have informed participation and action. We want to empower our participants and give them a meaningful way to participate in opportunities that will help to shape policy. There are 2 opportunities upcoming. The first is the FDA workshop on drug development for CFS and ME, and that's on April 25th and 26th. And then we have the Federal CFS Advisory Committee in May 22nd and 23rd. And I believe both of those are going to be available to view via webcast. Is that correct, Suzanne?
That is correct.
Okay. In addition to the webinars that we have recorded, we also have additional information for you on our Research First website, and that link is also included in the email that we will send as follow-up. We will do our best to answer questions that were submitted through the registration process. We may not be able to get to all of them, and the questions that you submit during the webinar we will try to get to as well, but we want you to know that we are so appreciative of you sending those ahead of time, because that does help shape the presentation that you're about to hear. We'll say one thing, we can't answer specific medical questions, but we'll do our best to answer all the other questions. We're going to spend about an hour today, about 45 minutes to an hour talking with you. We are all in different locations. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. Suzanne is in Colorado, and Mark is in Kansas City. So there may be a little bit of a delay. You'll hear us say, okay, Suzanne, I'll give you controls. It's just kind of a housekeeping issue. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I have been with the association for over 20 years. Kim and I have been here the longest, and it has been a great honor for me to work here and work on behalf of the patients and the families that we serve. I admire them so much for being able to continue and to fight through and to really become empowered to make their lives and those that come behind them better. So thank you for all that you do. I would like to introduce Suzanne. Suzanne came to the association in November, I believe it was, of 2007. She now leads our Research Institute Without Walls, which is the first initiative which is focused on the safe and effective treatment for CFS. Suzanne speaks at scientific and medical conferences, but I think one of her favorite places to speak is when she's speaking with the patient community. I've always been impressed every time I've heard Suzanne speak, and I hope that you will hear this today, is that she provides hope for those that she's speaking with. I truly believe after hearing what she says each and every time that answers are right around the corner if we can just move that process forward. Our second speaker today is Mark Stone, and as I said, he's our Director of Development. He joined us in October of 2012, so he's the newest member of our staff. Prior to coming to us, he was the CEO of the Polycystic Kidney Disease Foundation. He was primary architect for successfully restructuring that organization, which more than doubled their budget, scope, and impact. So we are very excited for what he can do for our association. So without further ado, I'm going to switch the controls over to Suzanne. And Suzanne is going to wow you with the information of the exciting opportunities that we now have available. So, Suzanne?
Thank you very much, Chris, for that lovely introduction. And can everybody see, can you guys see my screen? Which is how the CFAS Association is fostering the development of safe and effective treatment?
Yes, I can see it, Suzanne.
Okay, super. So Chris and Mark, if you want to mute your phones, that might cut back on a little bit of the echo that we have while I proceed. Thanks again for joining us today. We are very excited to bring to you our approach, which is a new, novel leadership approach to fostering the development of safe and effective treatments for ME/CFS. I want to start with a little bit of background. Well, actually, it's not background, it's like present time. I used to work with a guy who was an engineer, and he used to say, whenever we ran into some issues, Houston, we've got a problem. Well, Houston, we've got a problem. That number, $139 billion, is what is spent each year in our biomedical research complex. This $139 billion results each year in about 800,000 peer-reviewed medical publications, so papers that get published in the biomedical literature. This information is then used to hopefully put forward safe and effective drugs. This is what results from that information each year. So $139 billion spent, 800,000 publications in the peer-reviewed biomedical literature, and 21 FDA-approved drugs. Not a very effective or efficient system. If we distill this down a little bit to ME/CFS in particular, over the past 25 years, $150 million has been spent on research to ME/CFS. And that includes money spent by the NIH, by the CDC, by all of the federal agencies in general. Actually, this is just federal agency funding because this particular number comes from the NIH reporter system. This $150 million has resulted in about 5,900 publications in the peer-reviewed medical literature specific to ME/CFS. This information has translated to no FDA, zero FDA-approved treatments. So not only is the system highly inefficient for most every disease, it's also obviously very inefficient and ineffective for CFS. Why is this? Why is our biomedical research complex so incredibly inefficient? What this diagram shows you is the drug development and therapy pipeline. To the left of this pipeline, you see basic research. This is pretty much where that $139 billion of public funding, your taxpayer dollars, really gets targeted at this basic funding or basic research end of the pipeline. Over here, on the other side of the pipeline, we have clinical development and ultimately, or hopefully, FDA review and approval of what gets developed in the clinic. This is largely funded by industry and for-profit organizations, pharma, et cetera. All of these red dots on this map shown here at the bottom, underneath basic research, are investigators that have conducted ME/CFS research and contributed to about the contributed to the 5,900 publications that have resulted in. Sorry, I got a little flustered here. I just received a text that says make sure you switch to presentation mode. So we get to the animation full slide effect. Chris, are you seeing the animation? Mark, are you guys seeing the animation?
Suzanne, yes, I'm seeing it.
I am.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. Let me start over. So this end of the pipeline, basic research, is where the $139 billion is really the majority of it, the bulk of it is spent. And all of these red dots on this map below are investigators throughout the world that have conducted basic research on ME/CFS. We also have, at this end of the pipeline, under the clinical development area, some clinical research that has been conducted on ME/CFS, although this has been relatively few. There's now, if you go to clinicaltrials.gov, for example, about 10 clinical trials or clinical research studies being conducted specifically on ME/CFS. This has been not as productive as this end of the pipeline because CFS is a highly heterogeneous disease, many different subtypes, and this makes it very challenging to conduct clinical research that results in significant findings because of this spectrum, this incredible heterogeneity of the disease. This gap between basic and clinical research is what's known as the Valley of Death. And this is shown here. One side of this valley are the laboratory researchers conducting the basic research. The other end of the valley is where the clinical research is done, and ultimately the patient is waiting for FDA-approved drugs. And what happens is there hasn't yet been a very efficient way to get these basic research findings over to here. So a lot of the money and ultimately a lot of death, I guess, not really, but that's just the way this is animated or pictured, results falling into this gap because we haven't had an efficient bridge from basic to clinical research. Over the past 5 years, we at the Science Association have really positioned ourselves to be the leader in translational research. Translational research is what is needed in order to bridge the basic research and the clinical development. This has occurred with a mix of private funding, such as the funding that you invest in organizations such as ours, and some government funding. And this is where we are at. We have focused all of our attention on bridging this gap. And we're doing that with our Research Institute Without Walls. Our Research Institute Without Walls is is really a very novel way that we have chosen to break down the silos in order to conduct research in a very open manner, in a very sharing manner. And the foundation of our Research Institute Without Walls, pictured here in this double helix strand of DNA, is you, the patient. And we use you, the patient, as basically our primary, our centerpiece of our research effort, so that every different type of investigator that comes in to our Research Institute Without Walls is focused on you, the individual, with the intention of getting every bit of that research back to you on that other side of that valley. Again, being as efficient of a bridge for basic to clinical research as possible. So how are we doing that? Let me take you on a tour of our Research Institute Without Walls. The first stop in our Research Institute Without Walls is the research infrastructure. About 3 years ago, we put the first piece of our infrastructure in place, and this is the Solve CFS Biobank. Many of you have probably heard about our Solve CFS Biobank. It is both a registry where you provide specific information about yourself, about your health, and your basic demographic information is provided in here. And we have designed the biobank to be really an on-demand biobank, so that when there is research that needs to be done, or an investigator wants to investigate a certain research area, we work with them to find out what type of information and what type of biological sample is needed in order to conduct that research efficiently and effectively. So it's, in that way, it's very different than a traditional biobank, which goes around and collects any blood, for example, in one type of tube, and that's stored until somebody needs it. Again, we're on demand. We only collect samples that are needed and necessary for a particular type of research study. And again, this is very, very important, because many different types of research that is conducted requires different types of sample, whether it be blood, tissue, urine, etc. So on demand and very, very efficient and effective, and also very nimble. Our biobank has actually become an approach that many other nonprofits and others that have been in the biobanking industry for a while are beginning to emulate. Another important component of our biobank is a system called REDCap. This is the Research Electronic Data Capture System that we are working with in partnership with Vanderbilt University. REDCap is basically our information platform for the biobank. This allows all of the biobank participants to enter in information electronically into this REDCap platform once they receive an invitation. It allows us to enter in all of the information about the sample into the REDCap system. So now every sample is attached to you as an individual. And then, most importantly, it provides the platform for our funded investigators and anyone who wants to use information and data from the Solve CFS Biobank to deposit and connect that data again in this data sharing platform. This is very, very important, because historically money has gone out and funded investigators, their research has been conducted. Sometimes it results in some very interesting findings, but those findings only end up in a paper. Now what happens is we are able to really connect or concatenate the data, the results conducted on all the various studies to you as an individual and to your sample. So it becomes a very, very, very rich and valuable component of our research Institute Without Walls, and an absolutely essential component of the infrastructure. Again, this is a translational piece that has been non-existent from the ME/CFS field, and so it's a very important piece that we have been able to provide. Our next stop in our Research Institute Without Walls is experimental research. And again, we have the Solve CFS Biobank and REDCap at the center of our experimental research branch of our Research Institute Without Walls. Around the Solve CFS Biobank hub are all of our current funded investigators and investigators using the Solve CFS Biobank samples. So we have Peter Rowe at Johns Hopkins conducting a study on neuromuscular strain, looking at how maybe central sensitivity may be connected to fatigue and brain fog as a result of neuromuscular strain. We have Marvin Meadow at New York Medical College conducting a study on interventions of autonomic nervous system dysfunction, 3 specific types of interventions looking to see how he can manipulate the autonomic nervous system to increase blood flow to the brain and hopefully decrease the cognitive impairment that is so common in people with ME/CFS. We have a very young investigator, Patrick McGowan at the University of Toronto, who is conducting an epigenetic study. Epigenetics being the chemical modification of our DNA that it affects the way genes are expressed. This is a very exciting study, and you will actually have the opportunity to hear some preliminary results from Patrick in 2 weeks. I believe, I think it's 3 weeks, May 16th, he'll be talking about this. And the really cool thing about Patrick is he used samples from the Solve CFS Biobank. And again, all of these, if you are a participant, then you will be hearing some, I'm going to give the punchline away, some very exciting results about that Patrick has generated. Eric Delwart is at the University of California, San Francisco, and Eric is conducting a virome study. Again, Eric has used our Solve CFS Biobank samples to conduct this study, and a virome study is basically looking at all of the viruses that are present in the blood from CFS patients and controls. So we are very excited to have the results of this study, which should be coming hot off the press in the next few months. A new study that's being conducted by Mike Kuperstock at the School of Medicine at the University of Missouri is looking for autoantibodies, and in particular autoantibodies to the nervous system throughout the body, both the brain and the peripheral nervous system. She's working with investigators at the University of Oklahoma and Columbia University to conduct this study. Importantly, Mike is using samples from the Solve CFS Biobank. So here you go, 3 in a row. So an individual will have epigenetic analysis being conducted, virome studies being conducted, and autoantibody studies being conducted. Before our biobank and our Research Institute Without Walls was in place, this would have been done by these 3 individual investigators and kept separate. Now it's, again, all being aggregated and providing an incredibly valuable result that
Suzanne?
Will help. Yes. Yes?
Suzanne?
Yes?
Okay, you cut out. We've gotten a couple messages. People are saying that you're cutting kind of in and out, and they're asking you to speak a little bit louder.
Okay, thank you. Is that better?
That is better, yeah.
Lenny Jason is at DePaul University, and Lenny is using the Solve CFS Biobank, the registry information, the questionnaire part of the Solve CFS
Suzanne,
Biobank.
you cut out again.
Case definition.
Suzanne?
I'm
Sorry.
here.
Okay. You're cutting out again.
Okay, I'm going to take off my headphones and I'll see if I just talk right into the phone, if that's better. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. And then there's BioVista. Spiros Defterios is the scientific director at BioVista. BioVista is a small biotech company that we have been working with over the past year to conduct a drug repurposing study. And this has been incredibly exciting. I will actually be talking about these results next week at the FDA meeting on drug development for ME/CFS, and I will allude to some of the results a little bit later on in my presentation. Finally, we have James Cook at the University of Wisconsin in Madison conducting a systems biology study, and he is working with Gordon Broderick to help really integrate and analyze all of the very complex information that Dane is collecting, which includes neuroimaging, gene expression, all on top of an exercise challenge. So I think you can see from our experimental research branch of our Research Institute Without Walls that we have a very comprehensive research program going on that puts you and your samples and your information all at the center of that research. So the most important aspect of our Research Institute Without Walls is data. And that data source is you. ME/CFS patients, plus the information, the data that you provide by participating in research equals big data. You are the most important source of big data around. And again, this is something that hasn't been available to our patient community and now is available in many ways that I will allude to, or that I have alluded to in our Research Institute Without Walls. Good data is invaluable, and good data drives good decisions. Again, this is one of the reasons, the lack of this big data from ME/CFS patients is one of the reasons why we've had this huge gap between basic research and clinical research. And providing this data is absolutely invaluable and will help us bridge the gap and really drive the clinical research that we need in order to get safe and effective drugs onto the market. Real-world examples of big data are around us everywhere. I mean, I think most of you are familiar with Walmart and how Walmart uses big data to drive the types of things that they put on shelves in particular areas of the country. Another example of big data use is what Facebook is doing now with Facebook Graph, being able to connect various aspects of your data as an individual with your friends and others throughout the whole world of Facebook. A really nice biological example of big data usage comes from ChorusCAD, which analyzed millions of data points to come up with 23 predictive genes for screening for cardiovascular disease. So big data is very, very helpful and absolutely needed in order for us to make progress forward. So our Research Institute Without Walls is patient-centered research. Again, you are at the center of everything we do. You are at the center of helping us generate experimental data. That's shown here. And I've already talked about all of the ways that you are already part of the experimental data by the funded investigators using our biobank samples, and even the investigators that aren't using our biobank samples now are enrolling their study participants into the biobank. So we have bi-directional communication between our funded investigators and our Research Institute Without Walls. Again, patient data is coming directly from our SolveCFS biobank. This is a way that you can participate, and stay tuned because in the coming months we will have a few other ways that our patient community can participate in research. There's clinical trial data that you as a patient are providing, and again feeds into our Research Institute Without Walls. And this, we are in the process of designing a proof of concept clinical trial based on the results from BioVista, the drug repurposing study that we partnered with BioVista on. And something that I won't have time to talk about today, but we have developed a tool together with BioVista that it's a web-based tool that captures clinical intuition. This clinical intuition tool is sent out to physicians around the world, and they provide their approach to treating and managing ME/CFS patients. So again, all of the data that we have collected really has been driven by you, our patient-centered research and participatory platform. This is a lot of data, as you can imagine, and we have, over the past 5 years, constructed a platform of how to not only manage this data, but aggregate it and analyze it. We're calling this our Research Institute Without Walls functions as a participatory, predictive, and personalized platform. So let me walk you through this complicated slide. The top here are all the data types that I've already kind of walked us through that patients provide. And again, aggregated together in our data sharing platform, REDCap platform. This is fed into a system that we actually began developing in 2008 by one of our funded investigators. We call this platform Logos Omics. Logos meaning word, and omics meaning all, so all words. What this does, what this software does, is it breaks down all of the information up here, all of the patient data up here, puts it into the context of the published biomedical literature, public genetic, genomic, metabolomic, etc., all these publicly available omic databases, and translates this into a medical language context. So think of this as our translator system. So it's really putting all of this data into one common language, translating it into one common language, so that we can ultimately identify CFS subtypes and all of the respective aspects that come from understanding what ME/CFS subtypes are, how patient-reported outcomes are specific to subtypes, what types of biological targets are specific to certain subtypes, and also what types of biomarkers are specific to certain subtypes. Logosomics will help us also identify treatment candidates, both with repurposed drugs, novel compounds, and other modalities that can be used for treating ME/CFS. And it'll also help us generate specific hypotheses about the disease process, understanding mechanisms of action of disease processes, generating new hypotheses, and identifying causal pathways. This seems like a lot, but when we have data coupled with existing knowledge, this becomes a very powerful approach and a very systematic approach for identifying and bridging and translating the information that we need in order to identify safe and effective drugs. And we know we can do this. We can be predictive. We have shown this before in data that was generated as a result of a clinical trial that was conducted when I was at the Centers for Disease Control, where we took a very heterogeneous population of CFS patients, and we identified we measured a number of different variables, genetic variables, symptom variables, other clinical characteristics, and using algorithms like those that are present in the Logos Omics platform, we were able to identify 6 different subtypes from this very heterogeneous mix. So we know we can do this, and we know that identifying ME/CFS subtypes is absolutely essential for safe and effective treatment for ME/CFS. I mentioned briefly that we are in the process of designing a proof of concept clinical trial. This is a very exciting development, and again, it's a result of our partnership collaboration with BioVista, using the drug repurposing approach that they have spearheaded in their small biotech company. And I will be talking about this next week at the FDA meeting, the approach that we used. So if you get an opportunity, if you're going to be there, you'll hear it in person, and it will also be webcast by the FDA. So in summary, our Research Institute Without Walls is really built on a foundation of participatory research that allows us to then become very predictive in the way that we identify the specific subgroups that are needed in order to be able to have very safe and effective clinical trials, which will ultimately lead us to personalized and customized targeted treatments for ME/CFS. Mark, I think I'll turn it over to you now to give us a little bit more inspiration.
Great, great. Thank you, Dr. Suzanne. I wanted to echo what Suzanne has told us from an illustration of a conference that I heard. Dr. Frida Lewis Hall, she's the Chief Medical Officer for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, world's largest pharmaceuticals. She was giving a talk at a conference, and she underlined the fact that the system is broken, that we are too siloed in our mechanisms of discovery, and there's not enough collaboration at all. And so she went on to say that, that there was an interesting example of the power of collaboration. And she used the acquired immune deficiency syndrome of a decade or so ago. She said, we went from no medications, no drugs, and very little research and very little investment in the whole AIDS and HIV continuum. In 7 years, we had viable treatments that extended and improved lives of individuals. And she said there were 2 reasons for this. And it happened for these 2 very important reasons. And I want to share those with you today just as we close our time together. She said, first, there was collective intent. And she defined that as the fusion of thought that comes from a shared sense of urgency. If you remember, around that time, there was an enormous urgency for somebody, somewhere, some entity to find treatments and cures for the acquired immune deficiency syndrome. And so that spawned collaboration, that spawned networking across the valley of death that's typically not done even today. Even though it was effective then, it's typically not done today. And she said there was, in essence, there was a collective intent in the U.S., among pharmaceuticals, among biotechs, among the patient group, the patient advocacy group. And then she said the second thing was key and very important, and that was the patient advocate or the patient participant. And the next statement, which I have here on the slide, was so telling for me. She said those that were once excluded from collaboration actually became the catalyst for new drug discovery and development. The catalyst for new drug discovery and development. It underlines, again, the participatory nature of how critical that is that we're launching into this. The participatory nature of our biobank, of a patient-reported outcomes platform that we hope that everybody will be involved in and participate in, sparking discoveries, sparking theories that can lead to discoveries, that can lead to treatments in those segmented ways. The physician's reported outcomes, or clinical intuition that Suzanne was talking about. Anyway, I was fascinated that the chief medical officer of the largest pharmaceutical indicated the very problem that Dr. Suzanne just explained to you, to us, indicated that was still a problem, and indicated the solution was illustrated in this, that we need more collective intent. The silos have to come down between pharmaceuticals, biotechs, and patient advocacy groups like us, or the patient participant, like maybe some of you, and that the patient advocate is really the catalyst, and especially when that is that patient participant is empowered through groups like CFIDS Association of America and what we're doing. So we are in partnership and harmony together to expedite research so that we can make discoveries and develop therapies to expedite, to get it to you quicker. I want to conclude with this. This is a picture of Mount Everest, and whenever I think of Mount Everest or see it and see some of the challenges and some of the journey, so to speak, that lays before us collectively, I think of an illustration I heard of Dr. Sir Edmund Hillary. He was giving a lecture in a London lecture hall after his first failed attempt at climbing the mountain. And at the end of his lecture, this picture was behind him on a big slide projection screen. And he turned his back to the audience, and he turned and he faced and addressed the mountain. And he said these words, "Everest, we will conquer you because you can't get any bigger, but we can." They say that every journey begins with one step. Many of you have been on a journey, and I'm sure many of you, because I've heard from some of you, feel like it's a journey that you're traveling all by yourself. Let me tell you a few things. Number one, you're not. We want to walk alongside you. We want to help. There are others that are coming alongside, using what strength they have, be it little or great, using what resources they have, be it little or much, in order to help us scale this mountain to find safe and effective treatments for CFS, for ME/CFS. On our journey together, it takes everybody. Sometimes it's just making sure the backpack is packed. Sometimes it's operating a base camp. And some people, because of the support and effort and encouragement, be it little or small, some people will make it to the mountaintop, and we will find safe and effective treatments, and we will find them quicker because we've worked together in a collaborative, participatory manner. allow me to encourage us all. Let's not think, and let's not let what we cannot do stop us from doing what we can do. Let me talk about some ways, if I can, very briefly, to engage where you fit in, where I fit in. First, register for the Solve CFS Biobank. This is vitally important as a patient registry, as a predictive tool. As Suzanne alluded to earlier, we're going to have some other platforms that we're going to be rolling out in the future that will handle patient-reported outcomes, because we believe that in those things we'll be able to predict, to find the predictive elements that we need to develop personalized therapies. Participate in online surveys and questionnaires. These are very valuable and highly important as we move them through the data crunching process, as we approach larger biotechs and pharmaceutical partners to partner with us. These are incredibly valuable, I would say invaluable, in engaging and then lowering the threshold for pharmaceutical engagement with ME/CFS and in their development of treatments. Become involved in advocacy efforts, such as the FDA meeting. We are seeking to collaborate on all levels to be the convener of all things CFS, ME/CFS, so that together we might conquer the mountain, so to speak, and achieve the desired goals of safe and effective treatments for every genotype, for every type that's affected by this horrible malady. Active participation in online community, bringing a positive, educated voice to the discussion. I know for me, there came a time in my life when I needed to decide in a certain circumstance, was I going to be a part of the problem or was I going to be a part of the solution? And I decided that I was going to do everything I could to be a part of the solution. And it changed my life forever. And it can change all of us as we all sign up, join up, raise our hands, in our hearts decide that we're going to be a part of the solution, not a part of the problem. We will get there quicker together than we will independent. And of course, invest, offer financial support. What has been rolled out in today's market is relatively inexpensive. That said, it will require about 2 to 3 times more than our current annual budget. We are launching some initiatives to raise some investment support. We are launching some initiatives to raise constituent support, but we are also positioning ourselves for the future so that we can acquire some support from the healthcare industry and some of the industry partners too. But help us here. No amount is too large, obviously, but no amount is also too small. What you give and what you participate in matters. It really, really matters to move the nickel, to move the dime. If you want to get some more information, we have our researchfirst.com website. Research First News you can sign up for. Of course, there's our Facebook and Twitter feeds, as you see there, along with YouTube videos and things that we have done, webinar situations. Lots and lots of great resources. We're going to be developing easier pathways, if you will, online to access some of our resources in the coming months that we're really excited about. But I just wanted to put that up there for if you want more information. And I also want to underline the webinars, the weekly webinar series. There's 6 of them. This is, I believe, the 4th. They're on YouTube. I want to reiterate that. The past ones are, and the ones that are coming up are on our websites. But please be involved in those. I appreciate your involvement in this. And I have the privilege, really, of serving alongside some of the greatest people, Chris, Suzanne, and the rest of the team at the CFIDS Association, not to mention wonderful, great people. When I was at a former organization, somebody came up and asked if I had the particular disease in my family. And I looked at them and smiled and said, I do now. I can say the same thing for ME/CFS. It's not touched my family personally, but I am now personally involved with people who it has touched. And so that has embedded deep in my heart and soul. So my vision, our vision, is to strive for a world free from ME/CFS. And our collective mission of these next 3 to 5 to 7 years is to make ME/CFS understood, diagnosable, and treatable. And I think together we can. Together we can get there. And as we've illustrated somewhat in this presentation, not to belabor the point, that some of the strategies that we'll use to make progress toward the mission, that identifying safe and effective treatments will be handled through our Research Institute Without Walls, through that, I'll shorten it, P3P platform, that participatory, predictive, and personalized platform that Dr. Suzanne pointed out. We also want to seek to strengthen the ME/CFS community and engage more people just like you, just like me, in the cause. And so we're expanding our reach and our focus and our collaboration pretty aggressively in the next coming months and years. And we want to aggressively expand funding for research because that's what it's going to take to get us to the next level, where we can be attractive to partners that can take us on all the way. And of course, our core value is purpose. We work with purpose every day. Across my screensaver says 17 million people depend on me. Today, 17 million people depend on me. That's how many is reported to have this worldwide. So I work with that purpose in mind. I know my colleagues do too. Collaboration, we've mentioned that over and over again. Respect, integrity, and innovation. We are on the cutting edge of all of those things, and we will get there together. To reiterate, you are at the center of absolutely everything we do. Every thought we have, every motion we make it to expedite safe and effective treatments to the market. And so I encourage you to join us and encourage you to contact us and encourage you to get involved. And with that, I want to either hand it back to Chris or say thank you very much. Do we have any questions?
No. I've been trying to answer them as we've gone along. They've been mainly about the biobank. Suzanne, I don't know if you want to talk just a few minutes about what the process is for people to enroll.
Yes, I do, and I also want to encourage everyone to sign up for this, as well as encourage your family and friends, because it's important as we move forward with specific types of studies, genetic studies, family genetic studies, that we have everyone participating, family and friends that may be healthy to participate. So the first step is to contact our biobank coordinator, and that is Gloria Smith. And the email address for, we don't have that down, do we? Do you know the email address off the top of your head, Chris?
If they just want to send something to Gloria at gesmith@cfids.org.
That would be perfect.
Yeah,
Gloria,
that goes directly to Gloria.
Yeah, Gloria handles everything biobank. So the first step, once you contact Gloria, is to let her know that you're interested in participating. She will send you some basic overview information about the biobank along with a consent form. So if after reading the general information about the biobank you still want to participate, you will sign that consent form, and that just basically says you've read it and you agree to participating in the biobank. Keep a copy for yourself, and then you'll send that hard copy back to Gloria. And yeah, that's still the one paper component of our system, and that's required by law to have that paper piece. And then once you have consented, then Gloria will record that and then send you another email which invites you into the REDCap system. And once you're in the once you're given that kind of password or that okay to go into the REDCap system, that begins the process of collecting all of the information that we need in order to be able to enroll you in both research studies and in clinical trials. So it's relatively easy. First step, contacting Gloria at GESmith, all one word, at cfids.org. And again, don't forget to invite your family and friends to do the same. The more people we get into the biobank, into the registry, the more powerful of a resource and more attractive of a resource it becomes to the research world and pharmaceutical companies. I'd like to say that we have had about 1,200 responses to the survey that we put out for collecting information about the upcoming FDA meeting. So it's just been an absolutely tremendous response. This type of participation from the patient community is, again, invaluable to helping us move forward towards safe and effective treatment. It's a very exciting time for the ME/CFS community right now. We are on the radar. We are the first disease group to be put in front of the FDA for their drug development initiatives, the first of 20, by the way. So we're poised to make some significant, important progress that will only happen and happen most efficiently with you. So thank you once again, everybody, for participating in today's webinar. Shoot us some emails if you have any questions, and we look forward to your continued participation with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.